The wind outside was howling that night, rattling the loose shutters of the small wooden house at the edge of town. Inside, 7-year-old Lily sat quietly on the worn-out couch, her tiny fingers tracing the pattern of the faded fabric as she tried to ignore the heavy silence that hung in the room. She had long, chestnut-brown hair that fell like a curtain over one side of her face, but no matter how much she tried to hide it, the dark reddish birthmark that spread across her right cheek was always visible. Her father, Martin, sat at the table with a glass in his hand, staring at her with the same bitterness he had carried for years. Lily's mother had died giving birth to her, and Martin, broken by grief and guilt, had convinced himself that Lily's birthmark was a curse, a reminder of all he had lost. While other fathers laughed with their daughters, Martin barely spoke to her except in sharp, angry words. "Stop hiding your face," he muttered that night, his voice rough. "No matter what you do, people will still stare." Lily's eyes welled up, but she nodded silently. She had learned that answering back would only bring more anger. At school, children whispered and giggled when she walked past, calling her names like monster and painted girl. At home, the one person who should have loved her unconditionally treated her like an unwanted burden. Everything changed the day Martin lost his job at the factory. His anger grew uncontrollable, and he began blaming Lily for every misfortune in his life. "If you weren't born like that," he once shouted, "maybe your mother would still be alive. Maybe I'd still have luck in my life." The words cut through Lily like a blade. That night, she sat awake by the window, wishing her mother were there to hold her, to tell her she was beautiful and loved. A week later, Martin made the cruelest decision of all. One rainy afternoon, after another argument with his landlord, he threw Lily's small backpack at her feet. "Go," he said coldly. "I can't do this anymore. You bring nothing but bad luck. Go live somewhere else, anywhere but here." Lily froze. She thought he was joking, but the hard look in his eyes told her otherwise. Her heart pounded as she picked up the backpack, her trembling fingers gripping the straps. She wanted to beg him to let her stay, to tell her it was a mistake, but no words came out. With tears streaming down her face, she stepped out into the cold rain, leaving behind the only home she had ever known. That night she wandered through the streets, drenched and shivering. People passed by without noticing her, or perhaps they noticed but chose to look away. She finally found shelter beneath the awning of a closed bakery, curling up against the wall with her backpack clutched to her chest. The city lights blurred through her tears as she whispered to herself, "Mama, why did you leave me?" Meanwhile, across town, a man named Daniel West, known to many as a young millionaire entrepreneur, was leaving a late-night charity gala. Daniel had everything money could buy: sleek cars, designer suits, a successful tech company. Yet behind his calm smile, he carried a loneliness he rarely spoke of. He had grown up in an orphanage himself, abandoned as a baby, and though he had worked hard to build his empire, the wounds of his childhood still lingered. As his car slowed at a red light near the bakery, Daniel's eyes caught the sight of a small figure huddled on the ground. Something about the way the girl clutched her backpack tugged at his heart. Impulsively, he asked his driver to stop. He stepped out into the drizzle and approached her. "Hey there," he said gently. "Are you okay?" Lily stiffened, ready to run, but the kindness in his voice stopped her. She looked up, revealing her tear-streaked face and the birthmark that had brought her so much pain. For a moment, Daniel said nothing, not because he was shocked by her appearance. He wasn't, but because he recognized the look in her eyes, the look of someone who had felt abandoned by the world. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly. They don't want me anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He couldn't just walk away. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you warm and dry first, then we'll figure things out." He took her to a nearby diner, where the waitress looked at Lily with pity but didn't ask questions. Lily sat quietly as Daniel ordered her a bowl of hot soup. She wrapped her small hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into her frozen fingers. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of safety. Over the next few days, Daniel learned more about Lily's story. He reached out to social services, but when they discovered that her father had willingly thrown her out, they began proceedings against him. Daniel offered to foster Lily while things were sorted out legally. At first, Lily was hesitant. Years of rejection had taught her not to trust easily. She flinched at loud noises and often stayed in her room with the door shut. But Daniel was patient. He never forced her to speak and often left small gestures of kindness. A sketchbook by her bed because he'd noticed she liked to draw, a nightlight to chase away her fear of the dark. Gradually, Lily began to open up. She told Daniel about her dreams of becoming an artist someday. She told him how the children at school called her names because of her birthmark, and how she had learned to hide her face behind her hair. "You know," Daniel said one evening as they sat in the living room, "when I was your age, people told me I wouldn't amount to anything because I didn't have a family or money. But here we are. They were wrong about me and they're wrong about you too. That mark on your face, it's part of what makes you unique. One day you'll see how strong it's made you." Lily smiled faintly, one of her first genuine smiles since her mother's death. Their journey wasn't easy. Lily had nightmares, sometimes waking up crying for her mother. Daniel had to attend court hearings to fight for custody against Martin, who tried to argue that he wanted his daughter back, though the judge saw through his lies. Society, too, whispered behind their backs. A wealthy single man taking in a little girl with a facial mark raised questions in the media. But Daniel remained steadfast, always putting Lily's well-being first. Months passed and Lily's walls slowly crumbled. With Daniel's encouragement, she began attending art classes. Her talent blossomed, and her teacher often praised her paintings for their depth of emotion. For the first time, Lily felt like she was more than the girl with the birthmark. She was an artist, a girl with a future. The turning point came during an art exhibition organized by the local school. Lily displayed a painting of a young girl standing in the rain, holding a tiny light in her hands. Beneath it, she wrote a single line: "Even in the darkest nights, there's always someone who brings you light." The visitors were moved by her work, and many praised not just her talent but her courage. As they left the exhibition that evening, Daniel knelt beside her and said, "I'm proud of you, Lily. You've come so far." Tears glistened in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you for finding me that night." Years later, Lily would grow up to become a celebrated painter whose work inspired thousands. She and Daniel remained inseparable, proving that family isn't always about blood. It's about love, kindness, and choosing each other when the world turns away. The story of Lily and Daniel reminds us that no one is defined by how they look or where they come from. Every person deserves love, respect, and a chance to be seen for who they truly are. Thank you for listening to this story. If Lily's journey touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words mean the world to us and can inspire others to choose kindness. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel Be Kind Always, and hit the bell icon so you never miss more stories that celebrate hope, compassion, and second chances.